I'm waiting for the live stream. We're good to go, Mr. Mayor, whenever you're ready.
Welcome everyone back into the chamber. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Olson and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that council now reconvene the meeting.
Oh,
We do need to vote on that.
all those in favor? And none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. So I have a motion moved now by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be it resolved that council, yes, we're moving to staff reports. Yes, so we're moving to staff reports. So the first one, 14.1.1. Be it resolved that council received the report 2024-0133, status of cannabis zoning bylaw amendment, and that council directs staff to initiate a technical process to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw to incorporate the cannabis zoning provisions and bring it into alignment with the official plan. To you for discussion.
Yep, open for discussion. Myself, go ahead, Councillor. I'll say my comments for next.
Yes, so just in the report, it just says that once you get the, initiate the technical process, I'm just wondering if that usually requires a public meeting, so I just wondered if we have a date planned for that public meeting. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess to the CEO.
Mr. CAO.
Yes, thank you for the question. Assuming that the basic proposition is acceptable into council, we believe it's possible to manage a public meeting on Wednesday, June 26th in the Accuracy room of the MCC. And so that would be our target.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to suggest at this time, and I haven't discussed this with other members of council, that perhaps for this exercise, we go to an outside planning consultant to do the work for us for various reasons, which I will remain just, I think, for transparency and perhaps our planning department. This has sort of come up suddenly. To make sure that they don't have to take on additional workload at this time. So I would like to put a motion forward. In order to discuss it, I need a seconder. If council wishes to go that way, is there a seconder for that? Councilor Olson, you will second. So now we will have a discussion on that. Any other discussions, ideas about that, about the motion? Deputy Mayor Wink.
So just a question, if we use an external planner or consultant on this, would that delay the process of having the public meeting on?
I will turn to the CAO.
Well, that's distinctly possible. Without, so the town's purchasing bylaw, there are some exceptions for on emergent basis and for relatively small transactions, and then furthermore, you've delegated adequate authority to me in certain instances to spend up to, I think I'm at 50,000 right now. Obviously, I don't use that authority very often. In any event, so for that purpose, and we're at the will of council to do so. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here. I would imagine we would approach the firm that provided the work about 3 years ago and supported the Cannabis Control Committee in coming up with recommendations to council. So now I'm making some assumptions about I have no basis to say that anyone will be available from that firm and to meet the timelines. I am. That being said, this is unplanned work, and the planning department is not operating at full capacity, at full strength. It's not fully staffed at the moment. So certainly there'd be some reason to use external planners. It is unplanned and we're shorthanded. Conversely, town staff have all of the, in fact, Ms. LaRock, who's present, has been involved in this file for she predates my employment in being involved in this file, 5 years solid. I don't know what the total duration was for her, but at least 5 years, and is highly conversant. And we're actually talking about something very straightforward here, since we've already gone through the process once. So I realize I've just made arguments for and against, but I think that's maybe the role of a good CAO. There are some reasons to consider doing that. I don't know if I could guarantee that would work in the time. I think if they wouldn't, then I'd have to look somewhere else for a different planner, as I suppose my answer. I think time is of the essence. Wisdom of Solomon, back to you, counsel.
Okay.
Spoken like a true lawyer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that question, Councilor Wing. Councilor Nesnick?
Yes, so when I read this report, it was just, my understanding was that it was just a technical process, that we already have all the information needed, but because it's a change to the comprehensive zoning bylaw, there does have to be the same process that goes through that whenever an amendment to that is made. But maybe this is through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Sturton, do we not already have all the information required in order to do this process?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. I think the substance of the work is done. It's what we want to bring forward into the comprehensive zoning bylaw through this technical amendment process. So, as I say, the substantive piece is complete.
Thank you. Councilor?
Well, so therefore, in my opinion, I don't think we need to bring in outside counsel or outside planning folks for that.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Olson, you voted, you were indeed the seconder. Any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if there might be a third course even, and perhaps it's, if we have the work all completed and we have the documentation, perhaps we could, at one time we were talking about the fact that we were looking at the changes in the documents, and if we could record the changes so that perhaps that would satisfy some obvious questions about transparency and things. If we just document the plan, and then we're able to show what the changes are to outside parties, perhaps that would be sufficient. If we do something like that, if I could ask the CAO about that.
Mr. CAO, comments on the new technology?
Am I not? Hello. Yes. So I think we'd be pleased to demonstrate our work. I taking some liberties to speak on behalf of Ms. LaRock et al., but having worked with her for 5 years, I know she knows how to use track changes. I have experienced this. So what I think Councillor Olson is alluding to is the capacity to set up a document so that you can show where changes have occurred, and it makes it quite visual and quite obvious. So we have a zoning bylaw that is 99% functional, and we're just looking around that other 1% to sort of perfect it. And I think that would be an easy way for us to demonstrate the work that's done very quickly and to show where it's concentrated. And I think that would add some value. And so I think that's, if I'm interpreting Councilor Olson correctly, I think that's actually an excellent idea. So we could show, now I'm talking about a final report that comes after a public meeting, and who knows what submissions are made there, but in essence, that's a great way to encapsulate the changes into an already existing document. We can show what the final outcome is and then what the proposed changes are in blazing red. So I think that's viable. I don't know if that addresses whatever transparency concerns exist vis-à-vis the planning function. But I think I would say we have the skill, capacity, knowledge on our planning team. The bench strength's pretty good here in Pelham, so that if we show the finished product with some track changes, you can see what happened, you can see what went in, what's come out, and we're talking about something really defined, narrow, and specific. It's not document-wide. Like I will use the 99 and 1% analogy. I don't know if it's literally 1%, but it'll be like that. So I think that could work quite well, and that might split the difference. The benefit is it gives us control over work timing. My only anxiety with going outside for planning is that we get 100% of, in this case, Ms. LaRocque's attention when, because we're her only client and employer, and when you go to the private sector, we are a minnow. We feel that with accounting firms, law firms, et cetera, right? So there is that, but certainly this is unplanned work, and I'm sure it won't be entirely unwelcome if it's done by the private sector. So there I am, talking both sides of my mouth again, but I do think the track changes thing could help.
Thank you. Councillor Olson, you still have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, so if we're 99% done, we can incorporate the work that's already been done by many people and many pieces of advice we have. And I'm happy to see that we would be able to demonstrate transparency in this, including at our annual meetings. Sorry, what's happening to me?
I apologize.
Okay, I was just
Finish your
about to
thoughts,
tell the mayor I wasn't going to vote in favor of the motion. I just put it on the table, so I want to make sure that got out there. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kerr.
Yes, I won't be voting in favor of the motion. Instinctively, going back, realizing that what we're functionally looking at is materials that were heavily investigated. The writing was done. The verbiage was done. The verbiage was accepted previously, and an external hit was the person that had been involved in that. The idea is that everyone needs to see what was a deficiency and what is being added to this through a technical process. Having the comparative and having reviewed dissertations and other things where the infamous track changes is always in the best interest of everyone, so you can see everything. I think that the fact that it's a singular item, and by requiring track changes, then it's easily identified to the public at large that nothing else is being modified, despite some concerns maybe of some people of what else is being done. And if the language is the same, I don't have a problem of following Councillor Olson's suggestion that we do a direct staff for track changes. That being made available to the public as well at the public meeting to show them at the discussion at that point. So I won't support your motion for going external because I think it's going to cause an undue delay in the process.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Again, we're still discussing the motion. Any further comments? To Deputy Mayor Wink.
So I'd like to echo Councillor Kerr's comments that I will not be supporting the motion. This needs to be put to the public as soon as possible. There's a gap in the functionality of this bylaw that it needs to be moved forward quickly in whatever we can do. And I like the idea of showing what was approved previously and what we're promoting or what we're going to approve now. And with just a few track changes is the way to go. So I don't see the need of spending extra money to an outside consultant to do this. We've spent enough money on consultants and on this file, and it's something that we're quite capable of doing. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to this suggestion, I agree with my fellow councillors, Councillor Olson, Kerr, and Wink, I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Well, before I call the vote, I would just like to state a few comments. Number one, I have complete faith in our planning department. Saying that, I also realize that in the thick of the cannabis wars that were fought mostly by the previous council, that we did indeed use an outside planner to allay some fears that from members of the community, whether they were real fears, whether they were justified or not, is indeed a bone of contention. But my idea of bringing this motion to council was that I realized that what we know, the information we have, that this is a routine correction, as it were. And I am very happy to see that we do have technology now that will track for everyone to see what we have in place and what we're going to replace it with are going to be 99.9% identical. It's a procedural process that we're going through. But even though it looks like the motion will go down in flames, I consider that I will not withdraw the motion, and unless anyone has any further comments, I will call the vote. Councilor Kerr.
Yes, and just kind of follow up, and I understand the need for external planners the previous time through, because this was totally new territory for any community in all of Ontario. My rationale for voting against going external is that this is not new territory. We are treading down the same path and not doing anything dramatically different. So that's part of my reason. I fully supported external at that point, but at this point now we're just paying to have, it's almost like paying somebody to tell you what time it is and you hand them your watch.
And what time is it, sir? Okay. I appreciate that. If there's no further comments, I'll call the vote. All the vote in favor of the motion? Obviously, I will. And all those against the motion? I know how you feel now, Councilor, at 6-1. Yes. So yes, the motion is defeated. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we return now to the main motion that was moved by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Kerr. So that is now open for discussion, debate, and vote.
Okay, and Councilor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That only leaves one question in my mind. It's to close the loop with regards to the outside counsel. I know we've gone over this many times, but it's been 2 years and we haven't finalized this process. And I understand the urgency of getting it done, but to me, the one outstanding thing is that the outside external counsel has not been heard by this council on this issue with where we are today. And for me, that's an important step that, if I would be proposing, and I'm not saying I'm going to do it, because I understand once we go to a deferral motion, then there's no more debate or discussion. But my personal opinion is I think we should defer it until we hear from external counsel, this council, with regards to why we're in the position we're in. Thank you.
Okay, so you haven't brought that motion forward, so we'll discuss that.
This is just a discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the discussion on a possible motion to defer is now on the table. Any councilors have comments for or against? Councilor Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would not be in favor of a deferral. People have waited long enough for a resolution of this matter. And I think if we've got our bylaw at 99% and we have capable staff here to do it, and a mechanism to be transparent with the community, I think a deferral would just be delay something that we want to get finished. It's been, this is going to have what is going to have its 4th birthday, I guess, pretty soon, so, I'd like to see it done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Councillor Eckert.
Yes, with due respect to Councillor Hildebrand, I won't be in favor of any kind of a deferral at all. I don't know what more information we would be getting from outside counsel that we don't already have, and I'm not satisfied that we would get any kind of a response as quick as we would like, and so we're being held hostage by that instead of moving ahead. So I wouldn't be in favor of a deferral.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nesnick?
Yes, so just through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question for either Ms. Sturton or Mr. Cribbs. Have you already had any consultation with the outside counsel that was on this file?
Mr. Cribbs?
On Monday, May 13th at 9 a.m., we had a Teams call, which is Town Solicitor, Ms. Sturton, myself, Town Clerk, Mr. Tigert, a member of the Planning Department, and our external counsel of record. And that's when, in my mind, a problem crystallized. And based on that, I wrote council 2 reports, one of which is before you today, the other of which was before you on Monday. So I actually consider external counsel to have participated in the writing of this report. That's the words. I've signed both reports because that's our process. When multiple people are involved, the ranking employee signs them, and that's me in this instance. But that call is what led to us be here today. So yes, they have been, we have communicated with them, and we have their thoughts here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seo. Back to you, Councillor.
Yes, so thank you. So yes, I too would then not be in favor of deferral. I think we have the information we need to move forward with this file.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor, or, any other comment? Go ahead, Councillor Kerr.
Yes, I just to echo the comments of other councilors. I think we move forward. We've had our staff council support the reports that have come to us, and from my understanding of legal standings, et cetera, we have the information in front of us that's put in front of it is truthful. And I think, again, any delay is unwarranted at this point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Wink.
So I will side with the other councilors in not supporting a deferral. I think we do have the information. The deferral won't provide us any more information, but will add more costs to the corporation. So I will not be voting for the deferral.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hildebrand, do you wish to move forward with that motion, or?
I will not proceed forward on that motion because I understand how Councillor Olson and you have just felt after you go to a six to
It
one
hurts,
vote.
yes, it hurts, yes.
It hurts. But I still think I will not be voting in favor of the motion that we're going to go forward with at this present time. Because
Okay.
for me, I needed that final meeting.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Mr. Clerk, can you please read the motion again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Be happy to. Be it resolved that council receive the report 2024-0133 status of cannabis zoning bylaw, and that council direct staff to initiate a technical process to amend the comprehensive zoning bylaw to incorporate the cannabis zoning provisions and bring it into alignment with the official plan.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be asking for a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any other comments before I call for the vote? Oh, before the clerk will call for the vote if it's recorded. Councillor Kerr.
So the direction to staff of how to prepare the documents for review, et cetera, will be, is that a direction or is that part of this?
Mr. CAO?
I actually think it's a really, really good suggestion, so I guarantee that's what we'll be doing. You can feel free to amend, or just, we will do it either way.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Councillor. And without seeing any further comments, I will ask the clerk to conduct the recorded vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Starting with the recorded vote, Councillor Hildebrand.
No.
Councillor Kerr. Yes. Councillor Niznik.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Eckhart.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion is carried 6-1.
Okay, thank you. To you, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving now, I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr and seconded by Councillor Eckhart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2024-0127, new legislative requirements in the Public Works Department for information, and that Council approve the creation of one environmental compliance analyst position with a target goal of starting this position in July 2024.
Thank you. Perhaps we will turn to the CAO for a little more enlightenment on this position.
You know, Jason Mara actually has a beautiful voice. And he waxes philosophical like no one else. And I feel like I'm a monotone. So I think I'd like to pass the buck, if I may.
Yes,
And
indeed.
I may.
We will turn to the Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Recently, the MECP, the Ministry of Environment, Culture and Parks, has implemented new legislation for municipalities that basically puts the responsibility and onus onto the lower tier municipalities to manage the water, not only the water, but the wastewater and storm sewer services that we provide to the town, very similar to what the drinking water quality management system is for the town and what the Safe Water Drinking Act brings. So the legislation basically puts the onus onto the town for receiving applications, doing all of the approvals for new sanitary and new stormwater facilities and connections to our network. And it's an administrative function that's going to be now the responsibility of the town to undertake, which will be audited by the ministry. Very similar to how the drinking water quality management system operates. It's a phased-in approach. We're working with other municipalities as well as the ministry to download the responsibility. With that comes a number of standard operating procedures that the town will need to develop with respect to stormwater and sanitary sewer works, which will lay out maintenance responsibilities, obviously the approvals for new infrastructure coming in, and making sure that those systems and networks are upkept to high standards and service levels. There will be annual reporting that needs to be done, again, very similar to our drinking water quality management system, to the ministry, and that work will be audited by the ministry. And in itself, moving to that type of requirement for the town requires extensive amount of resources. As you know, currently, our drinking water quality management program is managed by a third-party consultant, the administrative part of it. So the intent with this new position is that we bring that in-house, and that was one of the recommendations made through one of our audits, that we have an external third party doing administrative work. That firm was also completing our internal auditing process, and there was an opportunity for improvement there. So this position will obviously look after the legislative requirements and all the approvals for our stormwater and sanitary sewer systems, which were never before required. When we had applications in the past. Those applications would pass through to the ministry for very complex projects directly, or would go through the region of Niagara for in the transfer of review program. So they would give approvals for smaller scale, lower risk type projects. Now that all comes on to the municipality itself. So this position will not only manage the administrative part of our stormwater and our sanitary sewer, but we would bring in in-house the management and the administration of our drinking water quality management system. Currently, the town, again, we third-party that out to a consultant, but other municipalities within Niagara, most of them have this position already established in-house, and working with the working group through Niagara who's dealing with the new legislation requirements for the ECA and CLI, they are looking at bringing in additional resources to their departments as well to manage these components. So that's the reason the engineering department is making the ask for this position. There was reports brought last year when we were getting our feet wet with the new legislation, how this would impact our department. Now that we've got the draft approvals for the CLI ECA programs for the sanitary and storm, we understand the administrative work that's required to undertake these, and this is what this new position would help us with at the town.
Excellent. Thank you for that detailed explanation. Before I open it to council, one question. Do you see down the road that they're going to be testing the water that's going to be leaving the stormwater management pond? Is that the ultimate goal? Do you see that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have my manager of engineering on the call, and Derek, he can make mention as to what types of sampling and testing will be done. I know there's going to be a number of requirements that we'll have to meet legislatively. Those will all be outlined in our operations manuals and maintenance plans. So Derek, maybe you can comment a little bit more specifically on that.
Mr. Young, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, one of the requirements of the stormwater management CLI ECA application is that we will be monitoring the outlets of all our storm outfalls. So whether that goes to a stormwater management pond, or whether that goes to a ditch, or if it goes to a municipal drain, the requirement is that we have to monitor them, and we also have to sign them so that the public knows where the outlet for their storm is. That is one of the requirements as part of the CLI ECA application.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, we'll now open it to any questions from council. Council Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to Mr. Young. Does that monitoring include the water quality and solids and temperature, or what does it include?
Mr. Young?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, currently it's not been defined by the MECP. They've just asked for a monitoring plan. We're currently in the draft stage of our applications, which we have until the end of next year to come up with our own level of service that we would like to provide for our storm outlets. Once we have the operation and maintenance manuals in place, we can then better establish a level of service that we'd like to provide to those storm outlets.
Councillor?
Yes, thank you for that. One of the key things with the 12 Mile Creek and the Rice Road facility there is the temperature of the water that's going through there. So I'm hopeful that that would be something that would be considered for that as well. And then the road solids that we're picking up off the drainage from the streets as well. And I had one other one, but I forgot what it was, Mr. Mayor, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Kerr?
Yes, and it's more of a general technical question. Are they going to be able to identify from a stormwater pond that's actually an active water source? It's not strictly stormwater entering it, to be able to identify the water quality. Case in point that I'd like to bring up is the Cherry Ridge stormwater pond is actually active groundwater filled. It is not strictly sourced from stormwater. So this creates another havoc, and my comment for that comes to the fact that when they were doing the mosquito abatement program, they were not allowed to treat the Cherry Ridge Stormwater Pond because it was an active flowing water source all year round. So you have, to me, that leads to potential challenges of identifying if there is a issue with something in there. Is it actually from the stormwater, or is it from the groundwater that's been percolating up for the last, well, way longer than I'm alive?
Any comments on that, Mr. Young?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no. The Cherry Ridge Storm Pond predates my position here. My understanding of the Cherry Ridge Storm Pond, it was more of just a control pond rather than a swim pond. So it was an outlet for the existing development to discharge their stormwater to dissipate the rate of discharge and allow a trickle flow out the other side underneath Maple Street towards the municipal drain.
Okay, thank you for those words. We have Director of Public Works, Mr. Marr.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, that'll be one of the important roles of this position is to, we have individual ECA compliance approvals for our stormwater management ponds, specifically in dealing with the Rice Road Highway 20 stormwater management pond. Part of that ECA approval was to do annual monitoring, which hasn't been ongoing since the pond has been in operation. So we do monitor water quality and temperature annually, 3 times a year from that pond. And based on what the approval, the compliance approval stated for a particular pond would dictate what type of sampling and testing and monitoring is to be done. And that'll be part of this position, as well as to develop and work with our consultant on developing our operations and maintenance manuals, which will tie in what the requirements for each individual pond are that we currently have, and then going forward, what those requirements and sampling and monitoring will be for those future facilities.
Excellent. Thank you for that additional information. Okay, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to ask an engineering question this time. I'm going to ask a financial question that bothers me with all these things the government comes up with. In the report, it says this position will not require any tax levy dollars this year, but it doesn't say anything about next year and the following years. What bothers me with all these government requirements, and I'm not saying they're not good, I understand they're required, but here we have another issue where we're going to have to do some more reporting. Energy reporting is going to a yearly report. That's another function that someone has to prepare. The Conservation Demand Management Plan, obviously right now it's at the 5-year limit, but I can see that changing as well. And these are all tax levy dollars that have to support someone to do the work. And that's the part. And I'm wondering where and how municipalities are expected to cover all these extra costs without provincial and federal legislation covering the costs. Is there any news from any of the government agencies and from other regions as to how they're covering these costs or recovering them?
To the CAO.
So, look, financially, this is a bad news story. Won't pretend otherwise. It's a download. There are 2 different orders of government, one of which is the region of Niagara. Fortunately, we have a representative in this room who might take that up come budget time, because that is one less thing they'll be doing, and one more thing we'll be doing. However, there is a potential for new revenue for the municipality here, because fundamentally developers need some of these services already, and they end up paying through their fees, and that just never came to the municipality. That would go onward to the region, or I think onward to the province. And so at least there will be a new revenue line to partially offset. The thing is, I mean, those words are chosen carefully. We have a plan so that this year there's no levy dollars needed, but next year, and while we will look to no longer have an external contract so as to subsidize, we are talking about something like $40,000 or $50,000 into next year's budget and into perpetuity for the Pelham taxpayer. So at the moment, we can smile and say, no cost to taxpayer here in 2024. But that won't, we'll have to, if you approve this, we will end up with another employee, and we will have to build that number into next year's budget. That will be an increase on the levy. There's no way around it.
Counselor?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those words. Thank you. Counselor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Young, is there any, I see LIDs are mentioned in the report here as well. Is there any possibility of writing those types of things into our process when it's due next year? Low-impact development, and I think that Derek is probably the expert on LIDs, and I'd like to hear what he has to say about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Mr. Young?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. LIDs are a bit of a unique item at the moment because the function they actually carry out is dissimilar to those of the swim ponds. We can include them in our documentation, but currently the MECP does not. They don't have any verbiage or compliance approval for LIDs.
Counselor? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We've now been sitting for over an hour and a half. I was thinking perhaps we all have a biological break of 5 or 10 minutes, please.